Myoho Renge Kyo. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. How are you today? I hope you're in good health, secure. Today I'm going to start with, we're still in Buddhism Reference. But today's term is Tien-Tai, otherwise known as Zhiyi, or Chi-Che. Depends on whose transliteration you use, or transphonetic, or whatever it is. But because Tien-Tai, and that's how I'll refer to him, because that name refers to his entire school of teachings, because he was so important and central to Nichiren's investigation of Shakyamuni's teachings. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on him. Talk about his background, his history, his followers, his different, many things you'll recognize that Nichiren brings up beyond the 3,000 realms, the 5 periods of teachings, and the title of the Lotus Sutra, the Lotus Sutra as the culminating, ultimate teaching goal of Shakyamuni Buddha. Much of this comes through Tien-Tai. He didn't invent it, but he was a very, very pivotal, notable. There are many scholars in the lineage of Buddhism, but there are those few scholars that are just momentous for their contribution, both in their insights and in their organization, logic of the teachings. Buddhism is about the mind and about reason. There are notables like Nagarjuna, who really took apart arguments to the point where they were irrefutable, Tien-Tai provided a whole framework for the entire 50-year teaching body of works of Shakyamuni. And because he did that so profoundly, he was able to discard a lot of teachings that were erroneous, that certain players used to promote their own agendas. There's ego, there's avarice, there's politic, there's all sorts of reasons why everything on earth is rehashed. Look, today we talk all the time, in my lifetime we've talked about the revisionist history, right? History's being rewritten by those who would have us be influenced in a way that agreed with their needs and their agendas and goals and aggrandizement. So, we're all human beings, so Buddhism is no different. It didn't escape this. The difference is that Buddhism calls for us something so beyond samsara, beyond the human experience of animality and greed and insatiable needs and desires, samsara. That we know that we are capable of experiencing life on a much more profound and life-affirming level that allows us to experience the preciousness of each moment of life rather than be taken away by these temporary foibles of excessive pleasure. Yes, pleasure can be excessive because it makes you forget the very reason you're experiencing the pleasure. Not just the reason, but the mechanisms, the the engine of life. And so Tien-Tai is one of those figures in history who, with that as his gauge, as so many scholars, was able to discern very clear truths and would lead eventually to our modern era and Nichiren comprehending and taking the mantle. And as I try to do every day, and it's no small feat, so I appreciate your practice because you're trying to do it as well, incorporate this higher, more broad, all-inclusive, cosmic self, yeah? Rather than the little bipedal, arrogant, little ego that runs around with a convenient label, our name, to fit in, to have others fit with us, the agendas, the egos are rife. They're everywhere. And we live in a time where nearly moment to moment, if not second to second, minute to minute, our attention is constantly being not only attacked by outside want-to-be influences, but by our own minds. We're so trained into this constant distraction that we do it to ourselves. And we know that doesn't ultimately satisfy us, right? Doesn't make us feel whole. So yeah, we're going to spend a little time on Tien-Tai. I'm going to start today, and this will just be kind of an introduction to him. And we'll do this in several parts. Maybe we'll get to the history today, and then there'll be early figures in Indian Buddhism. So we're going to jump around a little bit, but it's all going to be about Tien-Tai. And ultimately about Nichiren and our practice, right? Insights into the history of insights regarding how we practice, why the chanting, all of that. The 3,000 realms, we always need to hit that because it's such a pivotal thought, and yet very little time is spent on it in Buddhism. And I think we need to really get that clear in our minds. So here we go. This Chinese scholar is a preeminent figure in the history and scholarship of the Buddhist canonical texts and insights. Nichiren relies heavily on the insights of this master scholar and builds his own doctrine as an extension, profound insights built from the insights of the Tien-Tai treatises. Because Zhiyi figures so prominently in Nichiren's doctrinal developments, I have included a lengthy analysis of the Tien-Tai history and developments. Oh, man. Doesn't matter how many times you reread a text, there's always going to be a typo you missed, right? And, of course, Melly Mel to the rescue. So, need to mark that for a future revision. Come on, sticky note. Okay. Sorry, I apologize. Keep losing my pencil. Well, we'll do this. Oh my. I don't know how I have so little desk space, how I managed to lose a pencil. All right. Tien-Tai, or Tien-Tai, depending on how you spell it, Mandarin Tien-Tai, Wu Chijiao dialect, Tien-Tai native language, Tien-Tai. I have all these pronunciations in here, don't really need that. He's an East Asian Buddhist school of Mahayana Buddhism that developed in 6th century China. Tien-Tai Buddhism emphasizes the one vehicle doctrine, derived from the Lotus Sutra as well as the Madhyamaka philosophy, particularly as articulated in the works of the fourth patriarch Zhiyi. Brooke Zipporn, professor of ancient and medieval Chinese religion and philosophy, states that the Tien-Tai Buddhism is, quote, the earliest attempt at a thoroughgoing Sinitic reworking of the Indian Buddhist tradition. And according to Paul Swanson, scholar of Buddhist studies, Tien-Tai Buddhism grew to become, quote, one of the most influential Buddhist traditions in China and Japan. The name of the school is derived from the fact that Zhiyi lived on Tien-Tai Mountain. Tien-Tai means platform of the sky, which then became a major center for the tradition. Zhiyi is also regarded as the first major figure to form an indigenous Chinese Buddhist system. Tien-Tai is sometimes also called the Lotus School, after the central role of the Lotus Sutra in its teachings. During the Sui dynasty, the Tien-Tai school became one of the leading schools of Chinese Buddhism, with numerous large temples supported by emperors and wealthy patrons. The school's influence waned and was revived again through the Tang dynasty and also rose again during the Song dynasty. Chinese Tien-Tai remains a living tradition to this day, being particularly strong in Hong Kong. The Japanese Tien-Tai school is also an influential tradition which branched off from Tien-Tai during the 9th century and played a major role in the development of Japanese Buddhism. A Korean offshoot, the Chondai school, was also established during the 12th century. Furthermore, Tien-Tai and its offshoots were very influential in the development of other forms of East Asian Buddhism, such as Zen and Pure Land. That doesn't give credence to those, it just shows a kind of a genealogical spread of the foundational profundity of these teachings, yeah? So we'll hit a little history, and then we'll keep this short, and we'll wait till the next part 2. History. Mount Tien-Tai by Wu Bin, 1605, Honolulu Museum of Art. Unlike earlier schools of Chinese Buddhism, the Tien-Tai school was entirely of Chinese origin, as much as it could be. I mean, it was based on Shakyamuni's teachings, after all, based in Indian teachings, but it was a very grand reordering of the logic of the 50 years of teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha. So in that way, it was a holy, holy as in embracing all of the teachings and sorting out a purification, if you will, of the many, many modes and sectarianism that had spread in India, but certainly throughout its spread in China, north and south. Right? There were 7 major schools, and in order to establish his teachings at Tien-Tai, Zhiyi had to have big public debates with all these other schools to demonstrate that he saw clearly what the teachings were meant to promote, what they fundamentally, the fundamental meaning of the teachings. And once that was understood, these erroneous teachings simply, they were obvious. They couldn't fit. The schools of Buddhism that had existed in China prior to the emergence of the Tien-Tai are generally believed to represent direct transplantations from India with little modification to their basic doctrines and methods. However, Tien-Tai grew and flourished as a native Chinese Buddhist school under the 4th patriarch, Zhiyi, who developed an original and extensive Chinese Buddhist system of doctrine and practice through his many treatises and commentaries. The main center of the school was located in Zhejiang Province's Tien-Tai Mountain, which also gives the school its name. Over time, the Tien-Tai school became doctrinally broad, able to absorb and give rise to other movements within Buddhism, though without any formal structure. The tradition emphasized both scriptural study and meditative practice and taught the rapid attainment of Buddhahood through observing the mind. So you can see that although many treatises from India traveled throughout China, they failed at, in other words, they carried the stories of the sermons, but they didn't have much direction, much programmatic ways of practice. And so Zhiyi brought that to bear to elicit and to discover the meanings in those stories and texts to formalize a practice. This is why it's looked at as the first real Buddhist school in China. The school is largely based on the teachings of Zhiyi, Zhanran, and Zhiyi, who lived between the 6th and the 11th centuries in China. These teachers took an approach called classification of teachings, in an attempt to harmonize the numerous and often contradictory Buddhist texts that had come into China. This was achieved through a particular interpretation of the Lotus Sutra. So, in the next one, we'll talk about early figures of the Tien-Tai practice, and then we'll get into some of the names. Zhiyi, number one. Zhanran, his main pupil, but his, his prodigy. And we'll continue with this. You see how this relates directly to Nichiren, I hope. If you have any questions about this, of course, never be shy about asking. So either in an email to me or in the comments right here on YouTube, yeah? In the meantime, your support is incredibly important to the continuing of this endeavor for this YouTube channel, as well as the Podbean channel for the audio podcasts, and of course the website, which has tons of information. I hope you check it out regularly. The study materials page is something I'm constantly rearranging and adding to, with little teaching aids for you and for your friends, as well as just research documents. Thank you for your practice, most of all. So in that regard, please take care of your health. Stay strong in your practice, and I'll see you in the next one, part 2 of Tien-Tai. Bye for now.